All right, welcome everyone to the MCS annual membership meeting for 2024. That'll be followed by the regular meeting of the MCS Board of Directors for the month of May. It's Tuesday, May 14th, and we're on Teams tonight due to a conflict with the district over Zoom. Time conflict, that is. We don't have any pre-submitted public comments for this part of the meeting, and so that'll roll us right into the state of the school, which I'll read here and post on my screen.
Maybe just a quick reminder for everybody to mute yourself if you're not speaking.
Sorry, just a moment. This is new to me.
On my screen, there's a slew of actions down at the bottom with a little microphone.
And Marie, sometimes if you press the space bar, that'll mute you. Mute.
Sorry, I'm trying to share a screen here with Teams, which oh, there we go. Julia, do you think you can share the clean copy, the non-edited copy of State of the School that you and I worked on to the screen here?
I could try. Let me see.
Yeah, mine's not set up for that. It will not allow me to. I can read it and send it out later if people want, but for right now, it's not allowing me to share my screen, which is going to be difficult for this meeting.
Right. Let me see.
So let me keep working on that.
What are you seeing now?
I see it. That's great. Thank you. All right. As I reflect on the last year at MCS, I am filled with gratitude for our hardworking teachers and staff, our dedicated school administrators, and creative and tireless community members and parents volunteers. MCS has made incredible gains this year. We had a serious incident last spring that threatened the safety of our staff and students. The MCS board and I recognize that our work is not done, but I am proud of how we have come together as a school community to address the challenge of making our campus safer. We all want to make our school environment absolutely safe so we can return to focusing on what matters most, which is the education and well-being of our students. Teamwork and a shared vision have allowed us to continue working towards what we see as the bright potential of our little school. The MCS community will continue to move forward in a positive and productive manner to reach that potential. I want to recognize the hard work that Jen Langley did last summer to make sure that the school was ready to start. The incredible amount of work that she and the staff put in allowed us to come into this school year ready. I also want to thank Matt Henry for coming out of retirement to oversee and guide the daily operations of MCS this year. Matt's 30+ years of experience and Jen's knowledge of MCS allowed them to combine their skill sets to serve the school and accomplish the goal of stability. Finding the right ED for our school is an important and challenging task. We brought in a committee made up of teachers, parents, staff, and community members to weigh in and shape the decision of who our next ED would be. The committee members were unanimous in their decision on who the best candidate was, and I feel incredibly fortunate that we assigned Michelle Dawkins to be our next ED. The portfolio of experience she brings with multi-age and her passion and vision for Mosier are incredible. Michelle will soon realize that one of the things that makes MCS special is our incredible parent volunteers. And I must mention Brent Foster by name, who worked tirelessly with a small team to secure a nearly $1 million federal grant to upgrade our aged HVAC system, so that we can look forward to the ability to provide air conditioning for the first time at MCS. I also want to thank our Tigers Den team. We just ended a successful Made for Mosier event where we raised an additional $20,000 for upgrading our school playground. We also obtained a grant for the school garden, and our students are also currently enjoying after-school programs like soccer, drama, and science. The garden and school clubs could not be possible without volunteers. We have been impressed by how much work our staff puts in. They are truly all in for this school. Our facilities lead, Don King, has worked with contractors to fulfill the safety upgrades that we set out to accomplish and continues to work to meet those goals. Our staff continue to be there for our students. From emotional support to navigating state testing requirements and helping those students who need a little extra assistance, we have seen everyone working hard throughout the year. There is so much that goes into a successful day at MCS, and all the staff work together to get it done day after day. We're a small family-like school community, and it's the hard work of our staff, parent volunteers, and the community that make the difference for our students. As we continue to improve and upgrade all parts of the school, I look forward to working together and continuing to realize MCS's potential in the coming year. Dan Watson, thank you. And thanks, Julia. All right, that brings me to the voting that we just finished up today, and I will pull that up 1 second here. So voting, Daphne sent over the results that were tabulated today as of 3:35 p.m. Tiffany Strands had 46 votes. Myself, Dan Watson, had 42 votes, and Emily Miller had 26 votes. So the two candidates filling the seats will be Tiffany Strands and myself, Dan Watson. There were 48 total ballots cast and 16 new MCS foundation members, which is excellent. We've had traditionally a lot lower turnout in that vote, and it's nice to see that. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead, Marie. I can forward that to you. Okay, is that your question? Yeah, I'll forward it to the whole board. And with the finish of the election results there and no additional questions, that adjourns our annual membership meeting. Brings us to the regular meeting portion of tonight's online meeting. We do have 2 pre-submitted public comments. Just as a reminder, we generally set out about 10 minutes for public comments, and the limit is 500 words, or about 3 minutes for each comment. When there's questions, we will try to answer them if possible. Some questions, if they involve something including security, which would be protected by like an executive session or things that we're concerned about, we'll go down and go through that. So I'm going to pull up the submitted comments and read those for 3 minutes each, and we'll do our best to address any questions that come up. Sorry, bear with me here. All right, our first public comment comes from Danielle Weitzel. This was sent in on Monday. Good morning. Sorry, this is a long one. I've been a parent at Mosier Community School for almost 4 years now, and since our child has been at MCS, we have encountered continued communication issues at many levels. This has gotten a little better since the security issues last spring, but not by much. I was really surprised to hear from quite a few parents and guardians that they did not have any clear understanding or knowledge of why the security fence was going in, or why we have security gates at the school entrances now, how those security gates will work, and how we access the school during hours when gates are locked, etc. Also, how and why such drastic measures were taken without input from school families and community members. There has also been talk that the gates and fence have been making some children feel less comfortable at school, and the campus gives off a jail-like look. I know the majority of us know there was a security issue, but unless parents are watching school board meetings, which can be hard for many due to scheduling, it seems like many may not be up to date on campus updates, how they work, and why they are being implemented. The common thing I have repeatedly heard and lately continue to hear about the school is why aren't we being told things, or why don't we get any input? Among topics lately are concerns regarding security and if the guard will be sticking around or not with the current security upgrades having been put in place. The most common thing I have heard from parents is the hope that we as a school family and small community would be able to voice our opinions and concerns regarding having a security guard on campus. Some parents were hearing that the decision would be made by the board with concerns and questions being heard from school families and communities. I think many of us still have concerns and questions about the safety plan at MCS. Here are a few questions I have heard throughout the parents' grapevine over the last several months/weeks. What does the safety plan entail? How do the safety measures work? If something were to happen on campus, are we factoring in response time of law enforcement since the school is somewhat rural? What is going on with the middle school area safety-wise? With the news received this morning regarding security not coming back, I am sure these continued questions are at the forefront of many of the MCS families' thoughts once again. It seems to be a revolving trend of us hearing that our voices are going to be heard and that the school board wants to hear our input, but it never seems to happen. I understand that we are not privy to all information, and obviously not everything can be up to us as parents, a school family, and a small community, but just having the chance to have our voices heard and get some information is huge, whether that's an in-person type of event, survey, or some kind of other way. And as with all comments, their full board has every comment that people have submitted, and they're able to digest that, and we forward them along to anyone who may concern, whether it's a staff member or ED or along those lines. Many of these questions, though, have been answered in past board meetings. They can be answered easily by the ED and the facilities committee. Give me one moment and I'll bring up the other question or comment. Okay, this next and last comment we got is from Lindsay Hageman. It's a number of questions. Good evening, Dan. I have several questions I would like read and answered in tomorrow's board meeting, please. Are there security cameras at the middle school? Are the security cameras being watched constantly by a designated staff member during school hours? Whose task is that alone? How is the middle school fence going to be secured to the rest of the school's fence so no gates or gaps are left open during school hours with a completion timeline? Is MCS putting in electric car chargers that would be able to be used by the public? Thank you, Lindsay. The whole board has these questions as well. Most of these questions can be answered in the facilities updates that we get every month. Matt Henry has some answers for some of them. Other ones involving exactly who and what watches the cameras at certain times of the day. Those are comments, they relate to school security that we would have comments and discussions about in an executive session that protect our students' safety. A lot of it is, what we want to be open about, the projects that we're working on, which we've worked to do through our facilities updates. But some of it is things that, we don't want to openly give anyone who would do harm to our school any more information than necessary. Again, these are questions that you can reach out to Matt Henry about, and he can answer them for you. And again, we do want to encourage people to to write in with questions. I try to do my best as I receive emails to answer them and reply back. And I always put my phone number on there if anyone wants to discuss anything further. Try to be available to our families when they have questions. And I know Matt feels the same way, and the rest of the board. So if there's someone you want to talk to, if it's not me, you're welcome to reach out to somebody else. Julia, our co-chair, as well, is available. That brings us past.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Julia.
I'll just express my gratitude to the public comments. It's really helpful to hear from folks and get a sense of what people are feeling and what kinds of questions you have. We may not be able to just shift the agenda in a particular night in order to tackle topics that maybe were raised unexpectedly or I didn't see coming. But I will say they certainly consider all of the comments and questions, and that will inform our discussion, and also as we think through next month's agenda about or whether we need some sort of special meeting. And I hear the security concerns and just want to reassure everyone that we hear that is front of mind. It's front of mind for us too, and we're thinking about it.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, I mean, that brings up a good point. Julia's comment there is that, this board is made up of 7 people that come together to try to do the best that they can. And one person, whether it's the board chair or the newest board member, may have the best answer or may not have the best answer and may need to lead on other people to help answer those questions. So we work hard and do our best to serve the school in the best ways that we can. And we're always looking to do better and work on that. But, we don't have all the answers all the time. Item number 3 on our regular meeting is changes to an approval of agenda. And one thing we need to make a change to this agenda is the consent agenda, as well as, which is number 4. And the banking access update and treasurer's report will all be covered by a treasurer's report from Avelia, but the consent agenda is not prepared. Summer, Veronica, and Avelia are working to meet our audit guidelines and audit goals, and they're working on the budget and trying to get the budget ready for its budget season right now. So that's what they're spending their time working on at the moment. So we'll follow that back up in the next meeting as far as any charges and consent agenda topics. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, can I go ahead, Matt?
So Dan, are we adding the calendar 24-25 to the consent or action?
We can add that in your section.
Okay.
The ED report, and it just has an action item to. So that's the other change is that the district has come back with another change in the calendar that we need to adopt for next year, and so Matt has that. And Matt, when you present that, just make sure we talk about what the change is.
Okay.
So that people are aware. So those changes: removal of the consent agenda and adding an action item, which is an edit to the calendar for next year. Can I get a second to those changes? Thank you, Emily. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So that brings us to our treasurer's report, which is sent in by Avelia, and I'll just read it. Updates for tonight's board meeting. They're working on reports for audit and audit requests for Summer and Veronica. This is from Avelia. Budgets and transactions for approval will be provided with the target of the next board meeting. Prolonged delays on ability to get statements and access to accounts were just completed, and a couple more we're waiting for. There is an additional need is access to accounts, which is adding Michelle to the account access. So that's the last item on the treasurer's report. And just as an update, Summer and Veronica, our business management team, have a standing once-a-week meeting on Tuesdays, generally at 1 o'clock, that Avelia or myself or both of us attend to try to help streamline any questions they may have about anything related to audits or budgets or anything like that. And so a lot of their energy goes into that right now, preparing these audits, not only this one for last year, but preparing for the next one so that we're up to date on our books. Go ahead, Avelia.
Yes, I also forgot to add, we're working on the P cards as well currently, which is pretty much a credit card form that the bank will provide. The only last thing that we need is to work with Michelle, Jen, to make sure who will be receiving these P cards and the limits to each P card. And then UNCWA is ready to start issuing those as soon as we get that list ready.
Thank you for working on that, Avelia. Does anyone have any questions about P cards or what that is? Okay. That brings us to item number 6, which is our MTA report.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello. All right. I will start off with our report from middle school. This comes from Melina Hogue, our middle school math teacher, who says, she wrote this morning, so good morning, but good evening. A few things. First, middle school took the Math CAT state test today. Most kids were able to finish today, which is good. They said it was easy, so I guess that's good. However, I came away from the test feeling extremely disheartened. There seemed to be only 19 questions for each grade, and I have over 30 standards that I cover throughout the year. I don't feel that this is a great representation of our student proficiency. I work hard and my students work hard all year, and I feel that this test falls short of the expectations we hold for our teaching and our students. Second and third, from Mrs. Holmes and myself, we are studying plants, needs, life cycle, and pollinators. We are planning to plant some fun crops in our school garden. We hatched ladybugs and released them today. This Thursday morning, Ashley Elderly is joining us to discuss and do activities around native plants and pollinators.
Janet Baker reports that they're finishing off the year with a unit study of music. It'll include types of instruments, type of music, and how it makes them feel. They'll also be making fun drums, guitars, and shakers, and creating beautiful music in class. In writing, primary students are finishing their informational books about bees or butterflies. They've started a math unit on data and graphing, and the kids are loving conducting surveys. Primary teachers have a wish list on Amazon if anyone wants to check them out. They also had a virtual guest speaker on Monday. A scientist from Texas taught them more about bugs and answered lots of their questions, like why do they have exoskeletons instead of having skeletons on the inside like us? And what would happen if there were no bugs? What helpful things do they do for us? Lisa Stevenson reports that Miss Johnson in kindergarten, or primary, and she are collaborating on a pilot SEL makerspace for K1s. So far, it's been amazing. She created a makerspace mobile cart, which she brings into her class and making a scheduled SEL classroom time. Students are randomly grouped with peers to create something with the maker materials. Ms. Johnson and she move around the room to coach and remind students of the social emotional competencies that they've been working on with them this year. Things like problem solving, collaborating, social interactions, decision making, and self-management skills. The theory is that by having real life experiences and examples, students will have a better understanding of these important life skills. And I don't know if we reported last time that there were quite a few of us teachers that took a makerspace class this past spring, and it's been really fun for us to be able to create different activities and use our imagination and how we can bring more makerspace to our classrooms.
I guess that's it.
Oh, there's one more, sorry. In 4-5, they're excited for the last few weeks of school. They have lots planned for students. They're going on a field trip, which they did today, to, I always butcher this, Tamanawas Falls with Secrets program to explore what they've learned in science. They had a guest coming from Portland to teach about solar panels and how they work in the gorge in early June. In math, they're 2 weeks shy of completing all Math iReady lessons, and students are looking forward to showing off what they've learned on their diagnostic tests. They've seen leaps and bounds of progress in reading and writing. Students are all working on a Google Slides presentation from the unit-leveled readers that they have on the economic development of cities. Overall, they're having a blast and looking forward to doing multi-age next year with 4th graders again. Now that's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Lisa or Mary Ellen?
Just that I wish I could have been in the thing about bugs or the makerspace.
Right?
Yeah.
Come on in anytime.
I know my kids came home talking about bugs, and about ticks and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
They were experts.
I also want to acknowledge Ms. Hoag's comment and frustration. I think it speaks to the high bar she sets for her students, and really admirable, and also share her disappointment. I hope that there are other ways to acknowledge, and that her and the class find ways to acknowledge both what she's achieved and what the students have achieved this year.
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
I think Emily Miller spoke to that in the candidates forum about how her son went to high school and math was much easier for him after having come through Ms. Hoag's class. So I think that she's definitely working hard to make sure they're ready. It's much appreciated. That brings us to item number 7, our executive director's report with Matt. And again, Matt, I'm sorry I do not have the capability to share with. For some reason, my computer won't allow Teams to share.
It's fine. It'll be pretty short. I think we should go right to that calendar. And so Jen is going to explain the 2 very small reasons for me here. So we can get that approved.
Yeah, sorry. So after Michelle had a chance to look at the calendar and we went through the teacher contract, we deemed that ending next year the same day that the district does would be better, instead of paying the 2 extra days. We have more than enough hours of student contact hours, which is how it's counted. So we decided to just take off those last 2 days and end the same day that the district ends.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about that? The district alignment with schedules?
Just to confirm, that's for next school year, not for this year.
Yeah. Yep.
Now this is a tweak, but Jen, do we need to have Dan officially vote and adopt this?
I think they do, because we didn't get an official vote last time, if I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, technically the board should be approving or adopting the entire calendar, not just a change to the calendar. So I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So the other thing, so Thad, I don't think you were at the last one. So the other thing that we did was for parent-teacher conferences, we now made a change where the kids have half a day on the Thursday and then no school on the Friday. So it's half a day of conference and then a full day of conferences. It just really gives more parents the ability to come in, because some parents work nights. And then it also is not having teachers working 12-hour days back to back and trying to teach and then also prepare for parent-teacher conferences. And Matt had brought up, had input in that other schools do the same thing. And the teachers really liked that idea. And I think it'll allow all the staff to really concentrate on the parent-teacher conferences. And it'll give, I think, a lot more parents the ability to come in, at varying different hours. It was pretty limiting, I felt, for a lot of parents.
And Julia, you should have that updated calendar in your email if people want to see it, if we want to share it.
Mm-hmm. Marie, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I'm just a little confused here, because I thought we were discussing the 2023-2024 end of the year changing to the last day being on the 7th, as opposed to
we're talking about next year.
Okay, we're talking about next
year. I guess it was decided to leave this year's calendar as is instead of having us end the same day as the district this year.
And so this one we're seeing in front of us now that Thad's presenting is the updated one that ends on the 6th. Is that correct?
Yes, it ends on the 6th. And do all board members understand why the district starts a week earlier than us? I'm not sure if everyone understands why. So they have not only elementary and middle, they have high school, and high school students have to, they required more hours of student contact hours, more hours in school, which is why the district has to have an extra week from us because of those extra hours required by the state.
I have a question, John. Do the middle school and elementary school students go that extra week as well, or is it just the high school that starts that early?
They have their elementary and middle go as well, and I don't know if they have other adjustments in the elementary and the middle, but districts who have both the K through the 12, that's why they tend to end up having those extra time, because of the high school students.
Okay.
So this current year, we're ending later than the district?
We're going 2 additional days from the district, which was not caught. And the
So
bus
how
company,
are we managing transportation for those 2 days?
we have to pay for that transportation. It was brought up that we end the same day that they do and just have staff work that additional week to help plan for next year.
Yeah, I think, and the reasoning why it wasn't changed is that it's too late, to make a change at the end of the year.
Basically, we just didn't catch it a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And the bus company didn't even catch it until we brought it up, I think, in maybe March.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with ending at the same time as a district, but I guess it sure would be nice if we started at the same time as they did too. Then I've never been a big personal fan of Oregon's minimum instructional hours requirement, because I think it's like 47th or 48 in the nation. Just compared to Washington, I think we're a full year of instructional time down on a graduating senior in Washington State. That's not a point I feel so passionate about that I want to make a huge deal out of it. But to me, if we're going to align with the district, we should align with the district. Let's start when they do and end when they do. But that's just my opinion.
So I do want to interject that the North Wasco is actually starting on the 3rd of September. That was a change on their calendar for 24-25. One of the reasons we have more instructional time than they do is we don't do half, like late arrival or half days, whatever they do. So I think that's where you're gaining their time. Not Daphne sent me that they had updated their calendar for 24-25, and they have a first day on the 3rd for it's like a orientation day, which they actually cannot count as instructional time, and then their actual first day is on the 4th.
Okay.
Michelle, when did she send that? Because I just checked on their website and it's not updated.
And she sent that. I think they're just voting to reapprove theirs. Hold on a second.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a change that they did. She sent that to me on, that was a while ago, May 1st.
And my understanding too, Michelle, was that when I heard this through other staff in the district, they're not going to do their early release days anymore.
That's still on their calendar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can forward you the calendar that she sent to me, and this was a draft. I think they were waiting to approve it at a board meeting.
Okay.
So I think it has. I thought maybe the board meeting was just last night. I think they were just waiting to approve it at a board meeting. My other concern, and looking at this, I didn't kind of realize the numbers is, if we're going to, I'd rather not have early release days. I don't agree with that either. But the 5 days, because then you're 5 days short on the contract. is making those either conference days, which I think would be great at the end of the year, or work days, like a professional development days or something. So that might be an adjustment that we need to make.
So do you mean like on the 11th and the 12th, adding two
Yeah.
more work days?
Yes, because I think those are days that I can tell you as a teacher, if you had those days at the end of the year so that you could like start planning for next year would be, and I mean, Mary Ellen and Lisa could probably get in on that one. So.
Because we have the two work days, so you're saying add two more on top of it.
One I assume that they do is an assessment day, and one that they're like just cleaning up from the end of the school year. And then if they could have and a lot of times school districts don't actually make those right at the end. You can have those somewhere within the summer that teams get together to plan for next year. So just a thought.
Emily, you have your hand up, and Julia did for a moment there. So Julia, if you have another question, please feel free to ask it. Go ahead, Emily.
I just, given all of that, I'm wondering if we're better off if we wait and see what the district approves, and then make sure ours is synced up.
Matt and Jen, what are your thoughts on that?
My only concern with that is that we're approving it really late. It should have already been approved in April. So if we have to wait another month to get it approved, that could be an issue.
Okay.
I would agree.
The suggestion is you can approve this one and then we can make a revision, in the next month or two. I mean,
yeah, because
my concern is that, yeah, go ahead.
It sounds like B21 probably is starting on September 3rd. So does that mean when are they ending then?
They end. Hold on, I have to look at that.
The same.
I think we still have. Hold on, I'm sorry. They are ending according to this on the 12th. Last year was June 12th.
Ooh,
yeah,
so we.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like what you said earlier, we can approve this tentatively for now, and then when the next change comes out, I do agree with what Thad's saying. Like, we are pretty low in our required hours, and there's never been an excuse that, it's like, well, we're good. We meet the hours. Do we have students that need more time, and can we provide them more time? It's more where I would want to focus on. It's like, how are our students doing, and what does their competency look like, and what can we do to help them? So if we have opportunities to gain more days in the future, I think that's a bonus of things we should try and do. With that said, does anyone else have any questions about the calendar? Marie, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know, I'll leave it up to the, administrators to decide whether you think it might be worthwhile just sending out a message confirming the last day of this year, just because some folks may have kids in D21 and in Mosier School, and
that was
cool to just refresh everyone's mind, and because the change was made I see a revision made to 2024 from the D21 calendar. So, some folks might write everything down in their agenda at the beginning of the school year and may need just a reminder.
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, Marie, and that was one of the other considerations with ending the same day this year as the district, because we do have families who have kids in the district and at our school, and some have already planned trips, and we tend to not have, some might not have their kids at school on that Monday, and Tuesday's a half day.
Go ahead, Julia.
I just wanted to voice my support for, approving the calendar as proposed, and then making a modification if we learn of, that we're not in alignment with the district, and would say it is starting to become late to change that school start date. Just as a parent who books summer camps in August, you start to think about that. But I don't think people are planning as far ahead as June of 2025. So that date is a little bit easier to modify later. But if we are going to go before Labor Day, I think we should have let parents know very, very soon.
Go ahead, Emily.
Okay, just sorry, one more quick question. Just for educational purposes. Can somebody give me like just a sentence on why we approve the agenda at this point and why we're late?
The calendar.
Or yes, the calendar. Thank you.
I think it must have just been a procedural error in the past on why we didn't approve, because this is, I think, the third time we've seen it.
Sorry, I could kind of speak to that. So I think we tentatively approved it, and then Michelle was hired, and we felt that it'd be really good for Michelle to look at it and see if we needed to make any other changes, or at least double check with Michelle how make sure she was good with it.
And usually it's something that we aim to get done in April.
It's usually done early spring.
March usually. Normally school districts approve it in March. And my understanding is like Daphne didn't think it had been approved.
Okay.
Well, next year's hasn't, technically.
Yeah, she didn't think that there was a vote on the calendar. So when I talked to Daphne about it, so.
I think I agree with her.
Do we need to make a motion to approve it now? Okay.
Yes.
I will make a motion to approve the 2024-2025 Mosier Community School calendar, recognizing that if there are changes, we may need to revise it to match the district in the future.
Second.
Thank you, Thad. All those in favor? If any are opposed, please voice your opposition. I can't see everyone.
Would you mind repeating that, please, just for the minutes? And I'm sorry, I just want to make it clear that I was talking about this school year and not sending out a memo about 2024, 2025.
Yeah.
We got you.
Okay.
I think it was just a motion to approve the 2024-2025 Mosier Community School calendar with the recognition that if later on we find out that there are changes or revisions that need to be made to match the district, then we'll make those.
Thank you.
Okay. Matt, back to you with your ED report.
Are you guys going to vote on that later? Or did you just vote on it?
We just voted on it.
Okay, I missed that. And I have to say, I won't miss calendar discussions. They do change. They take a lot of time. I love your philosophy, though, about, not a minimum, but how can we ensure that educational goals are met for our students and our parents. We did finish up today the 3, 4, and 5 testing. And I certainly echo Ms. Hoag's comments earlier about testing. It's somewhat like a yo-yo. I mean, the state, had huge emphases on it 12 years ago, roughly. And it helped me as an administrator really guide people to focus on actual assessment data in their own classroom. But it just goes back and forth. And on the facility questions earlier, I was just going to mention that from the public comments that the middle school cameras or cameras, because you can get cameras that have 3 different lenses that go all directions, but we're waiting on a hard drive, a second hard drive, and then basically then we'll have access to finalize that. And I heard in the comments safety procedures. Not sure if that person, but every newsletter, everything we communicate, like you, Dan, my phone number's there. I always encourage people to walk in and if they have any questions. But there's a detailed D21 flip chart of all procedures, all safety procedures in every classroom that you guys are probably familiar with. Lockdowns, you name it. It's right there. It's on a clipboard. And we use that to do drills throughout the year. It mirrors the districts. You had a facilities report, and I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at it. Were there any questions that anybody had from that?
Did that go out to the whole board, Matt? I don't have that ability to post it on my screen right now.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't know if the email was
emailed
just
it.
to me or the whole board.
No, I emailed the whole board, but that's fine. Okay. Anything that pops out to you guys as far as like currently we are literally waiting for a different Fortress Fencing is the product. And they have hooked us up just in the last few days because Don has been trying to get the final fencing part finished for months, really, working with a vendor that we had worked with. Well, we've at least contacted Fortress Fencing. They have a different vendor now, and they gave her the impression, I believe yesterday, that they can really accelerate and help us accomplish that last piece. Until, as I put in my April-March newsletter, until all those fobs, as Dawn explains in her report, are basically activated, then there's no point in trying to have half the staff have them and half don't. And, as far as a completely secured campus, you guys will have that vision in front of you, and I think it's a great one. I think any concerns with safety, as I have shared with the change in the last week or so, is the fact is that Mosier Community School and its board of directors is highly focused on safety, and it's just a matter of time before that goal is met. You guys are just working through the process, and sometimes vendors really throw challenges, especially since the pandemic. Down the road, though, you might have to think about just how to either have cameras that can see things at night, and maybe ours can't, but just like the hallway between Gizmo and the gym, we just set up an alarm there probably 2 weeks ago, and it's already been removed by someone, basically vandalized it or did something to it. So that type of stuff, and the fact that it's sort of like a park, as you guys all know, and so that'll be an interesting thing that you just keep working with the community and trying to balance to ensure that everything you put into it is actually functions for its purpose. I have here that McKenna and Sarah Grace, they continue to work with Michelle, I believe, with the Aptigee product, and I think that's due the end of June, the bill. So that will proceed as you guys would want it to proceed. Data today, we had 152 yesterday. We had 151 today. K-8, 10 pre-K as usual. We had 2 relocations in the last couple of weeks, people literally moving across the country. So we lost those kids. I asked Daphne today where we were at with return of current student packets. And she said she said 98% of the current students we have returned all packets as far as how that would impact enrollment. And then I asked about the waiting list, and her comment was that she is 25% through going through the waiting list. And so you can follow up with her to maybe get a little more clarification of what that means. But she's had a lot of stuff going on, but that's where she's at with that. Lucille Begay was here last time.
A quick question on that one. Sorry, Matt. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Do we know what number corresponds to 25%? Is that 5? Is that 1?
I don't know that, but I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. I thought it was reversed when I first talked to her, but she said she was 25% through the waiting list. I will say that Lucille Begay will be here. I want to thank, there's one board member in particular, I won't mention the name because I'm not going to she probably didn't want me to do that. But anyway, she's been a huge factor in ensuring that Miss Begay will be here on the 23rd from 1 to 2 o'clock. If there was ever a assembly you guys could make, I'd encourage you to make that one. There'll be drummers and dancers, and it should be really, really interesting and educational for the kids. We continue to focus on the vertical alignment. The goals were simple. Any school this year, I mean, my goal as an interim was improve behaviors, improve academics, and I'm really happy that I feel like Michelle's going to bring in some expertise and working with Jen to really move those goals forward. In my report, I encouraged they refocus on the only system I've ever seen work, which is sort of the positive behavior support systems. And if Mosier can reassert a format that pursues that, and it's everywhere in the building. And then really the same thing. I was telling Sarah Grace the other day, it's like vertical alignment. It's similar to PBIS. Everyone needs to try to be on the same page to achieve curriculum alignment, which is aligned with standards, which collectively just brings the staff together. The benefit being for the students and the parents. Everything is transparent. And I applaud Jen and I asking Sarah Grace to take that on this year. And she really moved the needle. And depending on where everyone goes, you guys go with the collection of the data and the assessment work, you will see the needle really impact the school. I believe it'll be one more thing that attracts people to the school. But that will require a vertical blueprint and a little bit of heavy lifting, I would predict, to bring people together and collect the data, report the data, keep working together. We have staffing. We have a half-time classified position. Remind me, Jen, are we posting that or have we posted it? She's got something going on. We have a high dosage tutor that I have applicants for that already. One of them looks really good. And talking with Dawn yesterday with that increased volume of feeding of students, she certainly wants a half-time assistant in the kitchen. And I think she's got a very good point because it was proportionally supposed to come along with a volume of dollars. Gizmo has been, yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Sorry, my dogs were barking. What was your question?
I have here staffing update posted for a halftime classified position. Can you comment on that, where we're at there? Or have?
Yeah, that's just for a part-time TA.
Kitchen? I mean, is that the kitchen combo?
No, that's just a halftime TA. We've had that open for a while. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was just going to mention, it's interesting. No, I don't know what you guys will do with Gizmo, but like, for example, we've used it where the health curriculum was presented by an outside presenter. And we've used it some for some testing. So right now it's a nice little facility. It has a lot of potential. I escorted a couple of people through there for different reasons recently, and they were quite amazed at the kiln and other things that are in there. Maybe that becomes your boardroom, art room, who knows. I will say, though, I do look forward on the 11th of June to tune in and watch you guys at the next meeting. And I want to thank you for, really, it's been an honor. It's really been a blast. I will really miss the kids and the staff. And I hope to come up occasionally and play chess, if Michelle will let me, with some of the more challenged kids that we have. It's just interesting how different things that distract them, they blow you away, that they're so bright here, I'm not bright. I'm learning how to play chess, but when an 8-year-old can play chess, but yet has multiple behavioral challenges, it's just interesting what's going on to me in their head. That's about it. I think that everyone can move forward. Sarah Grace can maybe follow up next month. Michelle, Jen, on anything further. Any questions?
Matt, can you say again what your last day is, just so everyone's aware?
The 31st of May. Hopefully I get my wife to a nice dinner that day. It's her birthday.
Awesome. And you'll be you'll be in school that day for the full day?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
One last thanks to McKenna for really trying to improve the website with Michelle and others. I think that's going to be a huge. And I wanted to just say, you guys are so impressive. I had a quote on there that I'd end with that'll remind me of Mosier. Helen Keller, we all know, she says, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. And that's sort of the way you guys are. Incredible board, vibrant and close staff. Everybody has strong opinions at times, but the energy is there to really just keep moving forward. Thanks,
you,
Dan.
Matt. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
I
Matt.
think those feelings are shared by all of us. So thank you for being a part of it, and thank you for providing the stability you've provided over the last year. It's really been appreciated. It's been fun working with you.
It's a bittersweet, awkward thing. That's all I can say.
Any other questions for Matt on his ED report? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It brings us to item number 8, which is the budget update. And I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, who's working with Veronica, our business manager, on that.
Yeah, Veronica and I, we've had one meeting online. We're going to do it every Friday until I'm out of school. I am pretty swamped at Corbett right now. So our last day of school is May 31st. And so then my hope is to move some of my energy over to the Mosier direction. But what she's doing currently is we kind of went through, we're retaining all the positions at this point, the way they are, with the exception of the preschool, is moving that from a certified position to I call them classified. You guys call them teaching assistants, EAs, but moving it to that position. Those will be a less expensive choice for to staff that. We have a lot of interest in the preschool, up to 19. Matt was talking about Gizmo and what would it be used for, and it would be used for a preschool. That, Jen made the idea that does make so much sense. It has bathrooms in it, it has a separate entrance. We can make sure that they have an area to play. We sent out a survey for that. So Veronica, as she's creating the budget, keeping the staffing the way it is, the only thing I had was added was the addition of, to look at the addition of a half-time or full-time music teacher. I think that would be, I think we're really missing that. I mean, most schools do have music teacher, and that would be probably a draw for people as well. But she's also looking at the preschool as a separate entity because it has to fund itself. We've talked about different grants to make it happen, but I think that I have talked to one person already that is interested in it. I think that once we post the jobs for that, kind of sifting through to see who we get will help us with budgeting a little bit more, because looking at the number of kids, we've done a survey on it. The days after having after school care would be something we'd have to do. and just kind of seeing how that goes. But it sounds like keeping the preschool I assume, is a priority for a lot of you. I think that's a great way of getting students into Mosier and kind of feeding the pipeline of the kids that are coming in. So I think that Veronica, when she was making the budget, I think she was trying to figure out what the COLA was. We were working on that. She was going to look at what North Wasco was doing. She says she already has the PERS rates, and she's just going to add, having people go up on a step of a salary, and then adding the COLA and the PERS rate on that. So our hope, budget has to be done by June 30th. So you will have at the June meeting, you will have a proposed budget at that meeting. That's our goal.
Thank you, Michelle. Julia, you have your hand raised.
Oh.
Go ahead, Julia. Sorry, my internet just blanked out for a minute. I wasn't sure if you called on me or not. I just wanted to express, as having had a kid go through the pre-K, my gratitude to Janet Baker, who's just done such a fabulous job with that program, and I think really built it to be what it is. And and my hope that Janet will continue to find a spot at the school, because she's really quite remarkable.
And I think the good news for her is we have an opening for a K-3 literacy specialist that Jen posted internally for 10 days. And if she's our only applicant, that would be her job, because it's a transfer in, because she's like, her position is no longer there. It'll be a transfer in. Janet went to Corbett to see what our literacy specialist does, because she was a little bit, I'm not sure I can do this. And she went there and came back with, I can do this. So she's excited about it. So we see her talents and make sure that's, we're going to keep using her. So she's excited.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really makes me feel a lot better to hear about Ms. Baker.
I think on the numbers for the middle school, it looks like, I think they're at 42. Jen, you'll have to help me with that. That is 2 middle school teachers. And so that is 1 less than we have right now. And that is going to be out of attrition, because I think there's a staff member not coming back that's in the middle school. I think it's also, right now, I think the goal with everything is to keep the K-5 staff, get them up and running. The middle school is going to take, I think we just need to kind of look at that and how we can build that up. So, and that's probably not going to happen for September. But that's going to be that's a next year. How do we build the middle school? So.
Marie, you had your hand up earlier. Do you have any question about the budget report?
Oh, no, I was just, I wanted to second what Julia had said. My daughter was also part of the first class of Mrs. Baker, and she's just a phenomenal teacher. And so I'm very happy and relieved. It was keeping me up at night. What was going to happen to the preschool? So thanks, everybody.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I think Janet, she's been a kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, third grade teacher. She has all the talent to do the literacy part of that and go into classrooms and help with either coaching, help with kids that need some intervention help. That's going to be a huge lift for at least for the K-3 for sure.
So at this point, Michelle, are we confident that the preschool will be there next year?
Oh yeah, I think Jen and I are going to make that happen. That's our goal. So, and after talking, I talked to somebody that used to work at Roots, and that my daughter Stephanie said she's kind of looking at wanting to get back into preschool. I had a really positive conversation with her, and if we can find another person or two that has, she has her early childhood endorsement, and I'm sure there's other people out there too that we'd have to post that. I think we need to get that job posted as soon as possible. It will be 2 positions. One would be a lead teacher, and one would just be a teaching assistant for that, and get that going. But like she was telling me that like offering that after school care, that's really helpful. If we could do some June, and we talked about June and August, like day camps. She said that actually would probably help fund the preschool, throughout the year as well. And I thought that was a really great idea. Probably not running the preschool in July. But I think it's just, we have to like develop a really good plan before we, move that forward. And that's why I did the survey. We had 11 applicants. You might be related to one of them, Emily. So anyway, and we just said it will be for 3 and 4-year-olds. They have to turn 3 or 4 by September 1st. And most people, I was surprised. Most people only 7:30 to 2:15. There were probably 4 or 5 people that wanted until 3:30. So I think if we could run it, add that till 3:30. That would be helpful. And that could be only one of the staff members stay that late, but you just charge extra for that. Definitely talking to Veronica, we definitely need to increase the price is really, you can't find a preschool for the price that we're charging right now. So that definitely has to go up, but it will probably be a little bit, we'll have just kind of look at the community and what it can support. There also are talking to this applicant that was, hopefully the applicant. She was just talking about there's a lot of grants out there that we could also go for. So and she gave me some good resources. So
Julia, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag that we've, traditionally the middle school was actually 4 teachers, and that 3 teachers was a change, and 2 teachers would also be a change. And we've managed to retain our middle school teachers for a fair amount of time, and just thinking about the stability of the middle school and making sure we don't overburden those teachers, and that there is a way, and I leave it to you to figure all of that out, but I want to recognize, the hard work that our 2 middle school teachers are doing, and the challenge if they're being asked to take on new subjects, and how that would all work.
Jen can kind of speak to that.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. So Melina was a science teacher before she was a math teacher. So she's very well versed, both science and math, and she would be teaching science and math. Savannah is actually a history teacher. That is really where her training was and where her education was. And she, after doing humanities for us for 2 years, she would be teaching ELA and history. We'd actually get to separate those two. And with having only 42 students, it would end up being multi-age. And they wouldn't be teaching any more classes than what they are now. Just they would have the additional subjects. For Savannah, it's not going to be a huge change. She's really excited to be able to teach them separately, because you really can't do ELA justice when you're doing it as humanities. So she's really going to be able to concentrate on the writing and the reading aspect of ELA, and then the history separately. Melina is such an amazing math teacher. I'm pretty confident she was an amazing science teacher as well. And she was part of choosing the science curriculum that we currently have. So it will not be an additional burden in terms of classes they're teaching, because they're already teaching 4 classes, so they'll both be teaching 4 classes.
Thanks for all that info, Jen. I don't have a middle school student, but I'm sure there are some middle school parents who would be curious to hear that stuff. So I really appreciate you kind of explaining it. And,
well, also,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and overall, I just feel a lot of gratitude for our staff, and I'm always really conscientious of when it seems like there are changes that are shifting burdens or putting people in new roles where they're, that have really established roles. And so that's just kind of what I'm looking out for.
Yeah. And we're going to do whatever we can to make sure this is not adding extra burden on them. And they're part of helping us create the schedule. And then if we do end up hiring a music teacher, that'll, the middle school students will have music and PE. So we're taking all that into consideration, because the last thing Michelle and I want is to overburden, our teachers. And we're hoping really that it won't be an additional burden. They're both very versed and very excellent at both those subjects that we're asking them to teach.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's crucial to include them in on what this looks like. And so it's hard for me to do right now, but it will be easier in June. And but I think if you have a music teacher and you have the PE teacher and you have those two teachers, I think that it's definitely very workable for them. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle and Jen, for all that information and for the good questions.
Yeah. And
Go ahead.
sorry, Dan. I was just going to say thank you for taking that on. It sounds like between the preschool and potential music teacher and the changes in the middle school, it's a lot of problem solving that you all have been doing together. And it's nice to see. It sounds like a good path forward.
Yeah. Jen and I are meeting Friday together for a couple hours, and then the following Friday, and then I have to be at Corbett the following Friday. So we have been meeting on Fridays when possible. This just May is really hard for me, but it'll be better in June.
Does anyone else have any budget update questions or questions for any of the topics we talked about?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Julia.
It's a budget issue, and I just want to raise it, which is that and I had been tasked at one point with considering, how to compensate or maybe give some sort of stipend to our curriculum coordinator position for undertaking that additional work. And I want to just let that person know that has not dropped off my radar. I have just really been waiting for the budget and to have a sense of what kind of numbers we're talking about and get some clarity there. But I want to flag it for Michelle that we have someone who has been doing extra work this year to try to get the curriculum into alignment. And there was talk of providing a stipend or some kind of extra compensation. We looked at some examples from Hood River, and Thad may have had a conversation with Matt about this as well, but no final decision has been made because of the uncertainty around the budget.
That's really good information, because that needs to go in the budget as well. So the other thing I forgot to say is Veronica, I kind of also talked about having a tour with maybe a board member or two and Dawn to look at the facilities and but start budgeting, make up like a five or a 10-year plan and create a budget so that we are making sure that is also in the budget. I've heard when I spoke with teachers, that was one concern they had, was just some of the lack of maintenance, painting the school, just things like that. And I'm sure you guys are there more than I am. What needs to be done, and making sure that is in a budget and acknowledged in the budget.
Certainly. I think we do need to work on and figure out long-term how we manage those things, but also in addition, the stipend side of things, there's been some lack of clarity in the past on that with some classified staff and work that's been done. So we need to really find a way that we set up a system that takes care of that, so there's no ambiguity there. It's very set and clear for anybody that is doing extra work. So I have an item number on here that we can bring that item number out in the midterm contract work group. We can cover that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I mean, I can just, in my own experience, when you do extra duty, extra duty is always we have a set number for extra duty pay is just your hourly rate. You can add that in addition. And then there's a curriculum rate when they're working on curriculum work. Those are two separate things, but I'm not sure if they have those in the contract. I guess I'd have to look at that, but that is one way you can compensate for people. It has to be outside of contract hours. So.
Okay. The other things that may come up is bilingual proficiency and the use of translation from staff, if they're being asked to do extra work in that way. So there's just some things that kind of fall outside of the norms of our contract that we do need to figure out and nail down a clearer set of processes for how they're paid and how that's delineated, so that
Yeah.
I just want to clear up any confusion anyone ever has about what they're being paid for, how much they're being paid, so that, you know, there's no issues along those lines.
Yeah, and I think that's where like Mariella and Lisa and Jen and I kind of sit down and like talk about what are some things that they perceive as issues, and I think, I mean, the bilingual one we're also dealing with in Corbett, like because we have a staff member that is trilingual, and we're constantly asking her to do something that's not in her scope of her job. So, and how do you compensate that? So,
thank you. I'm excited about the work that will get done, the collaboration that we're hearing, and I know that the solution will be found. Thank you. That concludes item number 9, which was banking, item number 8, which was the budget update. Adelia already touched on the banking access update earlier and the P cards. So that was item number 9. That brings us to item number 10, which is the audit contract update. If you'll remember earlier on, we had signed a, I forget the term now, but it wasn't the contract, it was the intent with our audit company. And they forgot to forward the contract along as well. And the contract for audits is a 2-year contract. And it is with, give me a second here. Make sure I get the name exactly right. Polly Rogers and Company. So we have a contract with Polly Rogers that we still need to sign. It was somehow not done. And so it's an action item that is just to make sure we sign this contract so that we can continue to have our audit work done. They are doing audit work right now. They've been doing it for a while. And there was some language changes that Summer had them change that were more beneficial for the school. But it's a very short 1.5-page contract, and I emailed it to Julia, I believe, if we need to have it on the screen, if anybody would like to see it. But we need to sign the contract, and I wanted to make sure we had that discussion today. If any had any questions about that. Go ahead, Emily. I can see you have a question.
Well, I was just replaying what you just said in my head because you might have said this. Did we had previously a contract with a different auditor that we were going to get out of?
So we talked, this is our different auditor. This is the current auditor that we have. And Summer approached them to see if they'd be willing to break contract and let us go with the same auditor that the district is using. And they didn't feel comfortable because they're already working and they've already put in a lot of work on that. And so we just, so that's, basically rely on our accountant and our business managers for their input on it. And their input is stay with Polly Rogers for now, which is a 2-year contract. At the end of that contract, evaluate the job they've done and determine whether you want to switch to the D21 auditor or stay with Polly Rogers.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of the issues we may have, like Summer and Veronica are very detailed and they're working to make sure that everything that we have has justification or a story to back it up. And I think that may have been something we were lacking a little bit more in the past. And so the work was a little bit harder for the auditors to do because there was not enough information provided. And so they're working to try to make sure, and they have a million questions that get emailed out that trying to figure out what's, what is this expense for, or what's the justification for this, or where, if we had an RFP, where was it posted, things like that in the past. And so they're really working to make sure that they cross, all their T's and dot their I's. We had an intent, basically I'm sorry, I'm spacing on the name of the paper we signed. It was basically an intent to use them as that we signed initially, an intent to sign the contract, and then they just never forwarded the contract to us, and it just was something that never happened to get signed. So they realized this after talking to Summer, and they asked us to get the contract signed. So I think it was just an oversight on their part to send it out when we signed the intent to use their services or agreed to the intent to use their services that they never sent out the contract.
Thank you for that. So do we need
they're in the middle of, did you have that, Julia? Okay, let me see here.
If you forward it to me, I can put it up, but I don't see it.
Okay, no problem. I'll send it to you right now.
And so we're just making the decision to have you sign it, Dan.
Correct. Yeah, just, go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, can I just kindly ask that when we make a motion that we go slowly and maybe repeat it for me one time. And I also can't see everyone. So if we could move through the motions very slowly, that would really help me out. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll try and.
And sorry, I'm gonna mute myself. I'm sorry if you all heard me typing. I'm gonna make sure I don't.
So it seems like we probably need a motion and a second and a vote.
And Julius, I sent it to Julius so we could bring it on the screen if anybody had any questions. You want to read through it. It's a very basic contract that Summer has vetted, our accountant and our business manager. So it just needs our approval. And I can either read it or you all can read it on your own and just ask it to move forward.
So is there an amount anywhere in this contract? It looks like number 7 there says a reasonable fee. So what does that mean?
I don't recall what the last year's fee was or the last fee was. I can find that information out. I think it's in line with whatever best practices are, but I'm sorry I don't have that number in front of me.
Okay.
I can ask Summer right now if she's available.
Yeah, that also caught my eye, Dan. It seems a little odd to have no number figure or range of number figures at least.
Understood.
So this is a question, taking the temperature type of question. If this is something that we need to get approval on tonight, would folks feel comfortable with a motion that includes direction for Dan to sign this pending addition of an adequate cost in there or something like that? Like, can we approve it now pending the addition of how much it's going to cost?
I think so. I mean, the question just comes up like, what guardrails do we put on,
right.
I have no idea what we've paid in the past for audits or what's being proposed here.
Yeah, I remember that there was a dollar amount proposed, but I don't remember what it is.
Avelia, maybe.
Go ahead, Avelia.
Yeah, so the dollar amount proposed was $14,300.
That's for the first year?
Yes, this is for this year. The audit amount of what we're going through right now for time is going through.
My recollection was that was in line with what we had paid last year. They were all along the same lines when I'd asked this over before. I just couldn't remember the exact number.
Yeah, so it's 2023 that it is. The school district was just $3,200 more.
The other one would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we actually did cover that in our last meeting.
Yeah.
The cost, and now that I remember. Sorry, if not, I didn't have that at the tip of my tongue there. Thank you, Avelia, for saving the day.
Okay. Well, I
Anyone
think
else?
if we add that, I'm happy. I'm fine with you signing this.
Okay. So the motion is that.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that the board direct Dan to sign the contract as presented here tonight, with the understanding that the expected cost for this year is in the neighborhood of $14,000.
I'll second that. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Go ahead, Julia.
just saying that the expected cost is $14,000 doesn't. I mean, what we're signing here says a reasonable cost. Are we asking him to change this contract?
Yeah, that's
I think we're just. I think he's already given us the cost and the estimate. You know, so we already have our estimate of what it will be. I'm sure that so if you go up above where it talked about, Julia, just up in the next paragraph.
Yeah.
Above 7. The cost of preparing it shall be in, so that's a little bit more. So financial statements are in addition to the reasonable cost that we've already agreed upon with them. So there is some change that will happen when they're preparing some financial documents or statements here, but it's in line with what we've been paying in years past. I don't see, it's just, maybe it's my trusting nature, but I don't see them, taking advantage of that relationship. It's for a multi-year contract. It's a long-standing thing that, you can either continue for, and if we have an issue with it, as long as we're next year, within 6 months prior to July, it can be canceled. But I don't feel like it's like a vendor that's going to come and take advantage of us. They have a reputation in the community and do this kind of work. So I'm not concerned about that.
I guess I feel a fiduciary duty to the school to just have some kind of cap in here where at least they have to come back to us if we're, it's sort of like you bring your car to a car mechanic and they're required to call you if they're going to go over the estimate. So, by a certain amount, I would say here too, I would be more comfortable if there was some language in here that said, we have an estimate of $14,000, and if the costs, exceed that, then they will come back to us or notify us.
They'll be here tomorrow, meeting at the school with Summer, and remotely with Veronica. Avelia will be there. They've asked that I show up for that as well, so I can talk to them about that tomorrow in person. If we add that as an addendum to our motion, so we find out more clarity on the cost, and then come back to the board with that information, and I feel comfortable approving a motion like that today. And then coming back to the board if there's something that's way out of line that we don't, that doesn't have enough guardrails for us, and we can bring it up at the next meeting or have a special meeting about it if needed.
Yeah, I want you to be able to move forward, and I wonder if there's a path of just like, that we approve this contract with the addition of language or a separate agreement that they will contact us if the costs, exceed $15,000. So pick some dollar figure.
Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
I was simply going to say this company's very highly reputable. The district I was at for 5 years, we used them every single year.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I captured the motion. If you want me to repeat it.
Yes, please.
Okay. And Thad made this, well, I guess Thad did not make this motion, but the board motioned the board to direct Dan to sign the audit contract with Polly Rogers and Company with the pending addition of language in the contract stating that if the cost of the audit exceeds their estimated cost of around $14,000. Polly Rogers Company will contact Mosier Community School Foundation, Inc. Is that good?
I can second that. All those in favor? Any opposed, please voice your opposition. Motion passes. Marie, it's in the notes there that Emily put it in the notes of the meeting, so you'll be able to pull it up. If you look at the down below, the motion's there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for doing that. Let me know, Marie, when you're ready to proceed, and I'll move to the next topic. Does anyone else have any questions about the contract, the audit contract?
Sorry, I'm just having some trouble. My computer, this software is kind of glitching on me, and I'm trying to click on the notes, and I'm not.
Okay, I can read it again if you'd like.
Or if you just want to send it to me via email, I'll put it in. Yep.
I got that. I gotcha. I'll do that.
Great.
Thank you.
Sorry, my computer is.
No problem. That brings us to item number 11, which is our midterm MTA contract work group. So the MTA has asked that we meet to discuss benefits and COLA for the year. Initially, the last time it was Leah and myself who met to do the contract negotiations. I feel like I am too spread thin to meet on this, and I would reach out to Julia or Emily or anybody who feels that they have the time to meet with the MTA and discuss. What it is discussing is what's the COLA for the year, which is not, it's set. It's set by the Social Security Administration. There's a Northwest COLA that we've based all of our COLAs off of. And then the benefits, there's a suite of benefits that are available to our employees. We currently have the number 1, which is basically only covers the employee, and it doesn't have great coverage for their spouses and families. And so what the goal would be is, as we move forward as a school, as we look at our budget and identify what we can afford, we decide with them what they would like to see. It's not a commitment that we have to go with that this year, or that we're going to do this right now. It's a discussion with MTA to see what suite of benefits they would like to see, where we are on our scale that's offered by OEB and our benefit providers. And what that ends up being is just sitting down and discussing that with them and being familiar with what's offered. It was probably a year ago that we last met to talk about this. It was the end of last school year. And it's been pushed back because of all the work we've been doing with the new ED and other stuff. But they've been extremely patient, but it's time that we make sure that we engage with them prior to the school year getting out and just have a plan moving forward. Any questions on that?
Can you talk about what the process looks like? Like, that was really helpful, but what is the process to actually make that decision?
So the process is meeting with the MTA. The MTA has a rep named Phaedra that covers their benefits. I can forward the presentations that I got last time. They've probably changed by now. I believe Daphne may have some of that information as well. It's usually something that's run through the business manager, just because it's a cost thing. There's a cost incurred with benefits. But basically, looking at the benefits, looking at the cost, identifying, okay, in a perfect world, here's what we'd like to see. Here's the benefits we'd like to see. And then as we firm up our budget, work with our business manager and figure out what the cost is of those benefits and see, we know what we can afford now, what we have. And then, this is kind of the last piece of the puzzle of taking care of our employees and providing benefits that are more than just one person. Like, we have families, we have people with, it's not something that's stopping our ability to retain people right now, but it hinders them, because the cost of insurance, if they don't have secondary insurance from a spouse or something else, is high, and the cost of coverage for their spouses is high. And so it's an issue that is always going to be expensive, as benefits are, but something that we need to figure out in the long term. What can we afford? And that, go ahead, Tad.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to process, and I think it's important to generalize. When you speak to process, just generalize first, all this to compensation, whether it's benefits or salary or whatever, is a little bit irrelevant as far as process goes. It's not irrelevant from importance to employees, and I don't mean to trivialize that. But anytime the board, empowers a member or two to negotiate with the MTA on something, those members are, tasked with negotiating in good faith with the union over some kind of compensation change. That could be anything from a cost of living to a change in benefits to, last year we went through a full change of the, I'm spacing on the name of the document that guides all the sort of, job descriptions of our teachers. We're in mid-years. We usually do a full renegotiation every 2 years. So in a mid-year, there's typically the only thing that's up for discussion is COLA. Benefits and other things outside of COLA usually only get potentially negotiated and changed every 2 years. As we've been, we're in the middle of the 2-year contract right now. That's not to say that we can't decide to open things up, but from a process perspective, empowered individuals aren't necessarily able to just make the decision. They are expected to work with the union in good faith to come up with a proposal as well, and that gets sort of built into the budget via work with the business manager for ultimate approval, usually with our budget. So this time last year, Dan and Leah negotiated quite a lot of things, and we built those into the budget that we approved in June.
I wanted to clarify for a second there, Thad. We were trying to negotiate benefits as well and run out of time, so it was tabled and added into the contract as a reopener.
Got it.
So the COLA and the benefits are tied together as a reopener, and I believe that's why Lisa has her hand up. Just for clarification, we made good progress in our last negotiation. We have a great working relationship with the MTA, but we knew that we weren't going to be able to come to those. The future was too murky to be able to finish those things, and we ran out of time to finish the budget. The benefits discussion, and so we tied it with COLA this time. The MTA is also still a great partner that knows where we are financially, knows where we are in our enrollment, and understands that we can't pay today, but we want to identify which plan we want to aim for, so that when we can afford to make that change, that happens. So there's not, and Lisa, Marianne, you step in at any point here, but my understanding is that we're not looking at it and saying tomorrow or during this next benefits opener, we're changing to this benefits plan. What we're trying to find out is what's the best one that fits the staff at MCS.
Got it.
That's really helpful. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did talk about, and we are very aware of where the school is at right now, and that's why we put things on hold to reopen this spring. So thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions while Marilyn and Lisa are here about this benefits process? We are in, because we went to, I believe it's MODA or whatever our provider is. We have a set choice of things we can use. We can't leave the insurance provider that we have now because we're in this. Is it OEB, I believe? And so that's who we're using. And so what we have is really limited to what they provide. Some of the negotiation things you may be talking with the MTA about is how much their contribution is and how much our contribution is for set plans. So there's, as you gain, more than just the employee on the plan, the benefits plan, you have costs incurred with that. And the presentation from Phaedra was, showed those numbers. They're substantial numbers. And so then it becomes, okay, how much can the school afford to cover, and how much will the employee be required to cover, and what works best for our employees? And that's what this negotiation and this discussion is going to be about. It's like, where do we fall in this process? Lisa and Mary Ellen, does that sound appropriate to you?
Yes, it does. And just want to mention that we did not ask for a COLA last year. We really just worked on the CBA and wording and cleaning it up. So that's why we're reopening this year.
And for all those listening, our last cycle of negotiations, we focused on bringing the employees up to the standard of what's provided in the GORs. So we spent a lot of time looking at what's available, what the pay was in Hood River and what the pay was in D21. We didn't want pay to be an issue for our teachers to be leaving, because in the past we've had teachers leave due to the fact that our pay was so low. And so we worked hard to make sure that we brought everyone up and we're on par. And last year we were above where D21 was for pay, just as the way it ended out. And that was, the goal was to eliminate that as a reason to lose staff, a reason that we were losing staff historically. And so we've accomplished that. This benefits part is the next part of the puzzle.
Sorry, did we not do a cost of living adjustment last year?
We did it wasn't a cost of living adjustment agreed this year. It was, we open it and look at what the cost of living was. We did pay raises for everyone last year.
No. We did a COLA last year. It was the year before that we did the big pay raises to align with it.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for giving me.
We did not do a COLA last year.
It was 2 years ago that we did COLA and the pay raise together.
And I can go back and pull the budget up, but there was a lot of controversy because there were 3 plans that we were presented with 3 different COLA numbers, and the one we adopted.
I think it was the year before that.
Because you were on that negotiation team, Thad.
No, I was. You're right, and you're right. There was a year where we did both a COLA, and then a couple months later a pay adjustment to adjust with the district. But last year we did a COLA. We most definitely did a COLA. It was 1% more than the D21 did.
That's what I'm remembering too, and the controversy around that.
There was a lot of controversy around it because we did 1% more. I think the D21 did 2%, and maybe we did
3. That's what I remember as well. But maybe we didn't. Maybe that wasn't called a COLA. It was called just a pay increase.
My understanding.
Salaries did not remain flat last year. I know that they were definitely adjusted this time.
There were steps. There were definitely steps that people got if they were not at the top. But I don't believe there was a COLA.
Well, maybe as one of the action items on this, whoever is going to be a part of this team moving forward for the board can get the budgets from the last couple of years.
Yeah, sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I can pull up the budget that we looked at last year on June 28th, and the 2 proposals that were included in there were a 3% COLA and a 4% COLA.
Well, let's look at what was actually, maybe not what you looked at, but what was approved.
I'm looking at the materials that were literally presented in the meeting at which we approved the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason the reopener is in,
there was no 0% COLA option even presented in that meeting.
That's why I said steps.
Thad, would that be reflected in the pay scale that is currently in the CBA?
It should be. Yeah, it should be, because usually what happens once that gets approved, then all the steps in the entire table gets increased by that COLA percent. Right?
The CBA, that the current pay scale in the CBA was what was negotiated the 2 years ago, prior year.
Then that needs to be sorted out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then all of us are off somehow.
Yeah, that could be. I can only speak to what I know we approved in June of last year.
Okay, so slightly more complicated.
Yeah.
Figured out.
Yeah, and we can always go back and watch the the budget meeting from the 28th to verify, what was that. I mean, there's a recording of it on, available online, so it's not a problem to do that.
I'm looking at the 20, okay, so I am looking at the 22-23 salary schedule and comparing it to the 24-25, and there's definitely an increase.
The 22, 23, 23, 24, you mean?
Yeah, 22-23
Yeah.
salary scale, the highest, I'm just looking at, I always go to the highest. So 15 and MA is 88,023. And I think the highest on this year's, it's kind of weird because in the contract, there's only one. It's only 24-25. And I think it's at 91,000. So it definitely, I mean, there's definitely an increase.
So 91 versus 88?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's about 3%.
Yeah, I feel fairly confident that the budget, the schedules were adjusted as well. That we went from the 22-23 and 23-24. There's a COLA increase. There was a step adjustment as well, but you all go up your own steps as you go through the years. But there's a COLA increase from every baseline step to the next year. If you look at both the salary scales, the Schedule A is from both of those.
I'm trying to find. Oh, okay. And yeah, it's 91.5. Okay. So at the 22-23 salary schedule, the highest one is $88,023. And the highest for, if you're on step 15 with an MA at 45, you're at 91,543.
And for Mary Ellen, Lisa, we can reach out to Veronica and see make sure that this is, what's actually being used. So we'll make sure that the scale that is being paid based on, for today and for employees right now is based on that 23-24 scale that we're looking at.
So Michelle, the numbers you just cited are exactly a 4% COLA, which I believe is what we approved last year. But I'd have to go back and watch the meeting to 100% verify that. But that's out to 4 decimal points, exactly 4%.
Yeah. What would be helpful going forward when you have a salary schedule is actually to, like, normally on a salary schedule, you would say the increase that you did on it. So you're not guessing that you increased it. So that's just something moving forward.
Okay. So for Marianne and Lisa, as we'll follow up on that if there's any issues, one way or the other, we'll make sure that we know.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Currently.
Just so we're all on the same page. Could be we forgot, or that's possible.
I'm pretty sure we did 1% more than the D21 as well. Whatever they were, we did a percentage more than that. Now we just didn't identify I think what maybe you remember, because we didn't identify the COLA for this year. We left that as a reopener. To get back to item number 11, the MTA contract work group, the benefits and COLA is. If there any more questions, Emily, Julia, anybody else who may be wanting to be involved in that, in regards to just that, kind of what the process is there and what we're trying to identify.
I'm willing to help with that, but I'm also willing to give it up if there's others that are interested in that particular work group. I just recognize that Dan is maxed out. So
I am also willing to help. And I'm like really bad at math.
Okay.
So I would love to do it on a team if that's possible.
Okay. I'm certainly more than willing to sit in on at least the first meeting or two, just to be available for historical context on easing that transition. I just don't have the bandwidth to work and do things behind the scenes to make it happen. So if you want to take the lead and set the meetings, and I'll attend. But I can't take on anything else right now. I'm sorry. Any other discussion or questions about this topic?
Do we need to have a motion then? We probably do. So I think I hear a motion. I can put it out there that move that Dan and Emily, with Emily taking the lead.
Julia was in there too.
And Julia?
I think we have Julia and Emily, and then I will attend the meeting.
All right, I'll strike that motion. I'll move that the board ask Julia and Emily, with Dan as the voice of past experience, participating as available, to work with the MTA on future adjustments to insurance offerings, as well as any COLA adjustments that we need to include in this upcoming budget year.
And I also, thank you, Thad. Before we second that, be also important to not just send out a text that we make sure Michelle is included in those discussions as
of course,
and the business manager. So, obviously there won't be any effort to shield anything in that situation there.
Yeah, so. Sorry, I maybe incorrectly assumed that just went without saying. So
yeah, I do too. I just want to make sure that's verbalized for everybody. I second that motion, Thad. Thank you.
Could Thad, could you send me that?
Yes, I can. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed, please voice your opposition. Motion passes. Thank you. We are at 7:30, 2 hours in. We have policy updates left. Do you want to take a quick 5-minute break and come back and hit the policies? And Thad, what do you think for timeline on those policies? Discussion wise.
It really just depends on how much discussion there is. It could be 10 minutes or it could be a half an hour. It just depends on, I'm not aware of any outstanding, questions that have been emailed to me ahead of time. So it could be quite quick or not.
Okay. Let's take a 5-minute. Go ahead, Marie.
I need to interject. I'm unable to see everyone, and my computer isn't allowing me to click, so I don't know who voted on that last one.
All board members voted affirmative. No one voiced their opposition, so everyone was voted. And I guess I should ask for abstentions as well.
I can't see Avelia. Did Avelia vote? Is Avelia still on? I only see Dan, Emily, Thad, Julia, and myself.
Avelia is still on, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I can't see Avelia either, so I guess we're assuming that since we didn't hear her.
It's because she doesn't have her screen on. So I have a little thing in there that says 3 others. There she is right there, see?
Yeah, I'm like.
So if she turns her screen on, you'll see her, but if she mutes it, she'll go into the list of people who are just muted. Their screens are muted.
Yeah, I'm sorry. My internet is making this very challenging for whatever reason for me. So I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
We should be more vocal.
And when I try to hit the mute button, my computer isn't doing what I'm asking it to do.
Everyone okay with taking 5 minutes? Take a quick break, get some water, and we'll come back and finish policies. All right, thank you. Be right back. Before we move forward, I just wanted a point of clarification. Summer, in the interim, has sent me the full engagement letter that we signed with Polly Rogers, and it lines out the costs clearly. So it's not an ambiguous thing. It's a financial system audit of $12,500, a preparation of Form 990 for $1,800, for a total of $14,300. The additional cost would be if you wanted more paper copies of the audit. So it's like an engagement letter that we had already signed with him earlier. We'll wait till we have Marie back, and then we'll get rolling again. All right, thank you. Welcome back from the break. This brings us to item number 12, which is policy updates with Fab. Thank you, Fab.
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick. Just let me pull up. Okay, so let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
I've got on tonight's agenda for policies, second reading of two policies. One is JFCJ that covers weapons in schools. That's an update to a policy that's already on our books for the same topic, as well as JGAB, which is also an update of a policy covering use of restraint or seclusion. And this presentation is incorrect in that it says it's pending an input from administration. That's been clarified. And then we have a first reading of a local wellness policy, take two of that policy after some work with Dawn on the same. So this is actually, I guess in some ways, our third reading of JFCJ. We've been through some iterations on updates to the weapons policy. Again, we have a weapons policy on our books now. This is a required update from OSBA, and it did have some optional text that we've deliberated on and might want to deliberate on a bit more tonight. The nature of the change is that OSBA is requiring us to make update wording defining when or where student possession of weapons is prohibited. New wording that specifically addresses discharge of firearms. There's quite a bit of new verbiage on requirements around staff reporting if they know weapons to be on campus. And then there's been some optional text that cover, is kind of optional to the board that covers whether, they want, the board chooses to make any optional allowances for weapons on campus. That could be for reasons like hunter safety courses or under the control of law enforcement, or in our case, a security guard that carries a weapon. And so I've been going back. I know in the last meeting, I included sort of some boilerplate optional text that's actually recommended by OSBA. That's supposed to, they recommended boards adopt if they want to have any condition under which a weapon could be on campus, whether it be hunter safety or even law enforcement. I think the strong feedback I got in our last reading of this policy was that was probably more broad than in its allowances than this board was comfortable with. So I worked with Spencer Lewis at OSBA to narrow that language to specifically permit weapons if they're under the control of law enforcement. So that would be in a case where law enforcement was called to deal with a security threat like we had last year. And then secondarily, since we sometimes choose to, I don't know if we will next year yet, but we do want to have the option, it seems, to have an armed security guard on premises. Spencer Lewis made it clear that under the law enforcement does not include private security. So if you want to have your policy have an allowance for armed private security, there need to be an allowance for that. The wording I proposed in the most recent version of this document that I sent to you all basically was intended to permit law enforcement, weapons under the control of law enforcement without any approval, obviously. But that if security, armed personnel for security purposes were going to be permitted to have weapons on campus, that it would require executive director and board approval. And that was just my way of trying to come up with Spencer Lewis of a safeguard for what I'm, I feel like I got strong feedback last time that the board wanted to, pretty tightly restrict the conditions under which weapons are allowed on campus. I can pull up that policy. In fact, maybe I should right now, and we can look at the wording. Just give me 1 second. So the text in red is optional, and what I worked with Spencer Lewis on. The text in gray is, outlined with a gray background, but it's not red, are the updates that are mandatory, updates from OSBA. Are there any, I guess maybe I should stop talking and just ask if, I assume folks have read this and might have some comments about the proposal here or questions.
Any questions or comments for Thad?
I appreciate the narrowing you've done and the new text in red. It works for me.
I have kind of a global question on this one, and I don't know that we've talked about it before, but is there a reason why it just says students shall not, and it doesn't include others on campus?
Yeah. Let me,
I did see your email about the concealed carry and how this can't really cover that, but I'm just wondering why we're not including others in that.
my guess is that that's maybe the intent of this policy is just specifically to address students. That's a good question. I think generally, like if you look at our sponsoring district, they have other policies regarding public conduct on campus. Now, with regard to staff, though, it's a good question about whether this applies to staff.
Could be tied in, Thad, to the fact that at least unless it's changed, if a student has a weapon on school grounds, it's pretty much automatic expulsion. And it used to be, I believe, to the end of the school year, depending on the weapon and the circumstances. So I'm not sure if that's what's being articulated differently here or not.
Yeah, because down here it says, in accordance with Oregon law, any school employee has reasonable cause to believe a student or other person while in school is or within the previous 102 days has been in possession of a firearm has to report it, basically. So that would to me imply that the policy doesn't just apply to students, because there'd be no reason for the other person language there otherwise.
Yeah. And then also the second paragraph around the Gun-Free School Zone Act seems like that applies to more than just students as well.
Yeah.
So this, let me add some clarification here. So the JFCJ covers students. And if you go to the Mosier, if you go to the board website, GBJ covers staff. So there's a separate policy for students and a separate policy for staff. And we're just looking at now the policy for students.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. OSBA has them broken down into policies regarding students and policies regarding staff, and so this is just the student one right now.
What other questions do folks have on this policy? Are folks comfortable with this red language?
Thank you, Thad, for all of your work on the policies, and I'm comfortable to move forward.
Okay.
I am as well.
Then I'd like to make a motion that the board adopt as presented tonight, the updated policy JFCJ, and empower me to notify Spencer Lewis of that adoption so that it can be updated in our online policy manual.
I second that motion.
Did you get that motion, Marie?
No, I'm writing everything down now. So if you wouldn't mind one more time slowly.
Yeah, I'd like to move that the board adopt policy JFCJ as presented tonight and empower Thad to notify OSBA of that adoption.
And I seconded it, Marie. The record. All those in favor? Any opposed, please voice your opposition. Okay. We have some latency with Avelia and her internet connection, but her hand was up for the approve. It's just, at least on my computer. So there's 100% approval.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, the other policy update that OSBA is requiring us to do is to our use of restraint or seclusion policy. We do have a current policy on the books for this. This policy basically has some updates to the definition of restraint, has explicitly added prohibition of what's called a seclusion cell, and there's a definition of what that means in the updated policy. And then the language that we previously used, centering on how we, what we were using to train staff about use of restraint or seclusion, OSBA was requiring us to update to specifically identify, rather than our previous definition was a bit too general, to specifically identify the ODE approved training offering in this area that we're using. And I worked with Jen Langley to identify that we use the Crisis Prevention Institute, which is actually, I believe, the first of the approved dozen or so offerings on ODE's list. I can share that policy to the screen while I'm doing that, if anybody has any questions or concerns. Most of the updates here are fairly benign, I guess. Are there any questions or concerns or discussion folks feel is needed on this policy?
I didn't have any.
Okay. All right, well, I'd like to move then. This is basically the same text as the previous motion, Marie, with except change the policy to JGAB. So I'd like to move that the board approve policy JGAB as presented this evening. Move to adopt the policy as presented this evening, and allow me to inform OSBA that adoption.
I'll second that motion. All those in favor? Any opposed, please voice your opposition. Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, 1 second. Somehow I lost my window here. I can't. Where's the? Okay, there we go.
For the EFA policy, is that what the one you're looking for?
The guy that works high tech is struggling with technology at the moment. Okay. All right, so the final policy, and this is a first reading. I worked with Dawn on, I know you guys did a first reading of a wellness policy update previously. That policy turned out, after some more work by Dawn, to be far more limiting and constraining for a small school like Mosier than it needed to be. And she recommended that we start over on adopting a new wellness policy, and then we start with the one I sent to you all. I feel, just in the interest of sticking to procedure, since we threw the old one out and started with this one, we should go back to first reading and not call this a second reading simply because it's EFA. Dawn did say that as long as we get something approved by June, we'll be fine as far as our requirements with the FDA. I think it's the FDA. We do need to adopt an updated wellness policy in order to stay in compliance with our the FDA, and that ultimately relates to funding for our food program. So this will be a first reading at which I can take any questions or concerns, and then I can go work with Dawn and with OSBA to try to address them in advance of a second reading, which would be at our June regular meeting. Does anyone have any questions about the policy? I want to thank Dawn for the work she put into this, and any work that she'll have to put into it before we get it approved here in a second reading.
My question was mostly just about the timeline. Is it just sometime in June, or is there a date that we need to make sure that we meet?
It's okay that we approve this in our regular meeting in June. I can't remember the exact date she needed it, but the regular meeting should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
I had a couple of questions, but if there's others who'd like to go first, I'd love to let somebody else go. Okay. One, I was just wondering, because I'm not familiar with this, it seemed pretty prescriptive to me in a couple of ways. Like, it mentioned like how many minutes per week the kids need to be in physical movement, and then it also had that's one thing. That was one thing. I guess I'll pause with that. Is that typical to have? I think it was I'm trying to find it right now. I'm not seeing it, but it said something about how many minutes per week they must be doing.
150 minutes during each school week, and students in grade. So that's K through 5 is 150 minutes. And 6th grade is 225. At least 50% of the weekly physical education class time shall be devoted to actual physical activity.
Is that something that we have to be that prescriptive on it?
That's from the state of Oregon. It's the only thing it's the only part of the day they actually require certain minutes. They don't do that for ELA or math or anything else, but for some reason they focused on PE. It doesn't have to be PE. It can be movement. So a lot of teachers use other sorts of movement breaks to get that. They're looking at, there's talk of them readjusting that a little bit because it is a pretty good chunk a day for everybody. So they've had a lot of pushback on it. So
okay, so well, that's helpful. The other piece was around down towards the end. It talks about us doing annual updates on the policy and doing quite a bit of community engagement on that. And I was wondering if that's something that is required to be in here. It's under evaluation of the local policy. So it says will involve staff, parents, students, representative of school food authority, public health, all these folks on a yearly update. And that seems unlikely if we don't have to.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can ask Dawn about that and work with OSBA. I think some of these things might be required in order to meet requirements to get federal reimbursement for some of our food service costs, but I can't say for sure if all those things are required.
Okay, yeah, it just seems like if we can create a little bit more flexibility for our schedule and process, that would probably be helpful. And then also similarly at the bottom of that paragraph, it says that we will have an assessment annually, which I don't know exactly what that would look like, but could be challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe something that Dawn does is an assessment of this as the facility or the food services lead, but we can get clarification from her on that. There's a lot that goes into that she's required to do, and I know that she's talked about in the past. There's just the amount of the work that's required to meet the requirements of the of providing food for kids. There's a lot that goes into it, so I'm sure she'll be able to clear some of these questions up with that.
Good. That's
Good
all
questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I can work with Dawn to have answers for those for the second reading.
Anyone else have any questions for Thad related to the ELA wellness policy? All right. Thank you, Thad, for your work on that.
Yeah.
McKenna is not here today, so we do not have a fundraising report unless unless I'm unaware of that from somebody else. And that brings us to the end. Unless we have any other questions. Thank you all for your time tonight. Appreciate your engagement and involvement. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, folks. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.